Yesterday we were talking about like what is a data product, and Srujan, since you gave your answer to this, it'd be nice to hear your point of view, John. So, John, do you want to tell us like what do you think of as being a data product?
Sure, thanks. A data product is an organizational asset that enables insight, whether it be basic reporting or supporting predictive or prescriptive analytics. It's that capability to take the corporate data and provide it in a reusable and highly usable fashion. And so when I think about things, when we call it a data product, the products need to exhibit certain characteristics that make them usable and reusable. And they're easily found, they're trustworthy, they're secure. So that's what really differentiates a data product from something that's merely a query or a table or a CSV.
Okay, I like the idea that it's easily discoverable and it's secure as well. So you've got extra sort of levels of service beyond just, hey, here's some data set, could be anything. Nice. Okay, so I'd like to know some examples of successful data products. So just to make this a bit more concrete. Srujan, do you want to go for this?
Sure. One of the typical data products I've seen, most of our clients implement is a customer 360. That drives oftentimes personalization on their web properties, and it also helps them understand their customer journeys better. So that's a product that I see, pretty much most of the companies implementing, and it often requires data coming from 4 or 5 different types of source systems, and all of that gets packaged into the entire knowledge about your customers, which essentially is what the data product is giving you in a nice curated manner.
Okay, I can certainly see how that's useful. So yeah, very often it's like, oh, you got like some bits of data about your customer in Salesforce, maybe some like marketing stuff in Marketo or whatever, and then there's like 11 different systems that have just little bits of information about what you know about the customer.
Yeah.
So bringing that all together has got to be very useful. John, do you have any
Absolutely.
examples of successful data products?
Yeah, I'd give an example that's very close, but in a different domain, the longitudinal health record. So when you take an individual and you look at their experience over time in their episodes of care and what treatments, what medications they're on, the reactions to those medications, there's that ability to create, like the customer 360, that holistic view, and also highly important, that temporal view of that patient. And we've seen the healthcare providers and the payer organizations that we've worked with build those types of data products. And as Srujan pointed out too, they of course come from a host of different systems or solutions to provide that holistic or that full picture.
I can certainly see how that's incredibly useful. So whenever I go to the doctor, there's always like, oh, hey, just fill out this like 7-page form on your medical history. I'm like, I've visited you like many times before. How can you not know this about me? So yeah, having that all like automated and like easily discoverable for the doctor has got to be useful for the doctor, but also useful for the patients as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'd like to get into how you actually go about building these data products. And let's talk about who's involved in this. So I'd like to know which teams and which roles are typically involved in creating a data product. Yeah, John, do you want to go first this time?
Sure, thank you. So we actually, when we work with our clients on adopting data as a product and data mesh practices, we introduce the concept of a data product team. And that's a cross-functional team, and it contains capabilities that from understanding the business or the client need to the actual engineering. What we look to do is separate the platform, some of the more technical aspects of, how do I provision services when we try or how do I launch a metadata repository from those product creations. So we try and enable the teams to have a set of tools, those product teams to have a set of tools to use those more technical capabilities and focus on what is the data the client is looking for, how does it need, where is it sourced, and how does it need to be transformed and cleansed to be useful in that data product. So those product teams have a data product manager, data product owner. Love to talk about that at length. It will have some analysts, engineers. It may have a couple developers for presenting it in different formats. And in some cases, clients also take them out to the point of presenting the end deliverable, whether it be a report or a model. So they might have a combination of analysts and scientists in the team as well.
Okay, so there's that split then. So the product people, the product managers can decide like what's going to go into the data product, and then you've got analysts and engineers who are deciding like how that data actually gets into the product, like depending on whatever the product manager wants. Is that right?
Right. And this is I'm very passionate about this role. This new unicorn in our world is the data product manager, because that role is that orchestrator in the team, and they're working closely. The expectation is that they work closely with the client and they understand the data and the organizational model sufficiently to say, this is how this needs to be represented. Here are the concerns we have in terms of quality and presentation of the data. So they cross business, technology, and the realm of data modeling.
Okay, I like that idea of an orchestrator. It's like human Kubernetes. Cool. So Srujan, is that your sort of understanding of like how the data product teams work, or do you have a different opinion on who goes into the team?
No, so I totally agree with John. I think that role of a data product manager or a data product owner, I think that is a role that is going to be essential here. And some of the implementations that we have done, that role has become extremely critical. That techno-functional role that bridges the IT and business teams and creates that buffer in a way where they understand enough about the source systems and have a very deep understanding of the business and what the business is trying to do, and be able to bring that together. So that's I think a very crucial role. And everything else John said about, you need data engineers, you need data analysts, you need app developers to be able to present the results that come out of the data products in an efficient manner. All of these roles are important. One thing I've noticed though in some of our implementations is the primary or the most the role that's using the data products the most is being the data analyst or the business analyst, that is kind of helping out the business teams. So, and that's a focus area for us to make sure that business analyst is able to get complete understanding and easily able to access and use the data products.
Okay. So I'd like to talk about what skills each of these sort of team members needs. So maybe we'll start with the data analysts. What did data analysts need to know in order to be part of data product creation? All right, go on. Srujan, you go first this time.
From a data product creation perspective, Rishi, it's usually the data product manager or the data product owner working with the data engineering team, or the IT teams, and bringing them together to kind of define the data product. The building of the data product is often, what I've seen done by a data engineering role, and the data analyst is a consumer of the data product oftentimes. So they are like, instead of going into your dimension cubes, etc., cubes, they're going into data products to do some of that exploration and provide the analysis on top. So that's
okay.
Kind of how
so the data analyst is more about like, well, I need to be able to test this. It actually works.
I need to be able to use this. I need to be able to provide the answers that my business leaders are asking me, and be able to do that quickly and efficiently.
Okay. Can you talk me through what skills the data engineers need then?
So it's your typical data engineering skill sets to be able to profile and understand the data, be able to pipeline, apply the necessary transforms that are needed to be able to get the source system data mapped into your data product layer. So I would say it's your typical data engineering role that has an understanding of pipelines, that has an understanding of how to do efficient transforms, and has enough deep SQL skills to be able to start mapping your source systems into the data product constructs.
Okay, so really it's a lot of creating data pipelines then. Okay, that's good to know. It's like no sort of extra skills beyond the standard sort of data engineering role.
Yes, and for some of the way that we do data products on our side, an understanding of YAML, which is not that complex for a typical data engineer, but those things to capture the service level objectives, capturing the security and governance requirements into the data products, and make sure that those get implemented as well.
All right, nice. And then, so the other big role involved in this is the data product manager. And John, since you seem very excited about this role, do you want to talk me through what skills does a data product manager need?
Yes. So first off, they to be effective, a data product manager needs to have a good, solid understanding of the domain in which they operate. And I highlight this because what I've seen often as a failure pattern are strong technical, strong modeling individuals come in and try and take this role on, but they really don't understand the domain. So they become more order takers to the business than being able to provide an informed opinion on how those products should be shaped so that they become reusable and more usable through the organization. So having that understanding of the business, what are the metrics, what are the entities that exist within the business, how do they interact with one another? I think that's a core starting point for them. But then they also have to have a grasp of data, not to the level, as Srujan talked about, of a data engineer who's going to get down into pipelines and in-depth knowledge of maybe Python as well as SQL. They have a more generalized understanding of data modeling, how objects interact, and what are the requirements for putting together a high-quality data product. So there's that business experience. There's that experience on the data and understanding it, and there is an understanding of the platform and solutions that come together. As a product manager, and you're thinking about, well, how am I going to represent this in a catalog, or how might those data analysts or other consumers use things like lineage? That product owner has to have some understanding of the various components that are going to come together and enable those products to be effective.
Okay, so it does seem like these are pretty different skill sets. So understanding the business side of things to be able to say, okay, this is a sensible feature that needs to be there. Understanding the data so you can have an intelligent conversation with the data engineer, and then sort of those management skills just to be able to make sure that the right features are delivered on time. Yeah, okay, I can see why you said this is a sort of a unicorn position, because there's a lot of different things going on there.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. It's one of the biggest challenges we see for our clients is identifying the right individuals with all that right mix of capabilities, the right mix of characteristics to be successful in the role. It is a challenge.
Okay, so I mean, where do these people come from then? Is it like you go from, I'm a data analyst and I've been using these products, to now I want to start building them? Or do you go from like, I was a data engineer, so I know some of the technical side, and then I'm going to get into it? Or do you come from the business side? Who are these people?
You know, it's interesting. I throughout my career, and I've been doing this for a few decades now, I've seen those individuals come from all of those directions. So I've seen data engineers, technologists who become really passionate about the subject they work in. And so they start to build up that expertise. As an individual who's one of the managers at one of our large financial services organizations, and he started out in IT, but he because of his knowledge of the systems, he began to know the business processes better than the other people around him. So you can definitely see that individual move up into that role. Likewise, you can see business people who might join a finance department or a sales department as an analyst, and start to become really proficient both in performing the role of building those analytics, but they can also start to understand the systems, how the data comes together. I think the key ingredient that any of them have is just a passion about this. Is if you have that passion for data, you can start in any one of those three corners and then come into it. But it's got to have that sort of excitement about the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. So that's good that you can get into it from sort of any direction. Srujan, is this something that you've also seen? Like, if you want to be a data product manager, you can sort of go from, like, there's a lot of different ways to get into the role.
Absolutely. That 100% agree with John. One thing that I've seen for this role to be really successful is a deep empathy for the IT team, some of the decisions that they make, how they run their organizations, and be able to work with that empathy towards the technology teams, and at the same time have the deep understanding of your domain, of your business in a more holistic manner. Because one thing you don't want to do is be very narrowly focused and not have the larger picture in mind. Because if you want this data product layer to be the foundational layer for your business, you need to be, you need to have that holistic understanding to be able to design the data products the right way, for all the future use cases. So that empathy towards both the business and the technology teams, I think that's crucial for you, because you are really gonna have to get both sides, working well together to make this role happen.
Okay, so this actually it's a little bit similar to one of the things we talk about a lot in these webinars is that if you want to be a good data scientist or a good data analyst, you need to have an understanding of the business side of things as well as the technical side of things.
Yeah.
So it seems like this is a very common combination of skill sets, or it's becoming more popular anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so I'd like to talk about where these teams fit into the larger organization, because it sounds like it's kind of a cross-functional thing. So what sort of department would a data product team be in, and who would they report to? Go on, John, you look like
This is a great question, and we're talking to a lot of our clients about this right now. As advocates of leaders in data mesh, we do espouse a decentralized approach and pushing those product teams out closer to the business units, closer to the consumers and the customers that they're working with. That being said, there is also the need for any kind of technology or technology-oriented team to also live with the like kind. So you need to strike that right balance. If you push them all out into the business units, and we had this situation with a large oil and gas company. They're saying, listen, that business unit is made up of about 17 people in this one country. If I put a couple data product folks out there with them, they're going to get no leadership. They're going to get no support. They're just going to be order takers and get hammered. So you need a mix of centralized support from a technology, maybe a chief data officer, or centralized data office that supports the platform on which they operate and provides guidance and structure. But there has to be that close alignment to the business. So it's some kind of matrix organization that's highly dependent on the organizational structure you use in your company, you have espoused.
Okay, so basically the trade-off is you're either part of the data team, so I guess reporting to the chief data officer, or you may be if you're doing some kind of customer stuff, then you're inside the sales team or the sales organization, and then you're going to get better on the business side in one case and better on the data side in the other case, and there's a bit of a trade-off there.
Right. I think that you need to be aligned to the business. The one thing that we've seen, and again, going back into the 90s, of seeing us create these large centralized data organizations supporting large centralized data repositories. And for many organizations, that has become a blocker to progress, because everything funnels into these organizations. It's that challenge of everybody wants something from data. Of course, nobody wants to invest in it either. And so they become these very can become very bureaucratic in nature, very much managed by tickets, very much managed by utilization of resources. And what results in is those organizations become very slow at output. They're focused on often financial considerations. And so we do strongly espouse the idea of pushing those product teams out as close to the business as you can, but recognizing if you don't give them some sort of common support from a technology organization, some sort of matrix reporting relationship, then if they go out to the business doesn't know how to manage them. And like we've seen with many customers in the past, as we started Scrum and thinking about product owners, the customers can be, just give me more features, rather than thinking about how do I build a reusable architecture? How do I build up these data products that are going to actually make life better in the future and accelerate my abilities going forward? We need that balance. So if you did create sort of a 2 points on the line here between sitting in the business and sitting in centralized IT, it's somewhere in the middle, and that really does start to depend on your organization.
Okay, that's really interesting. Srujan, I mean, there's a pretty comprehensive answer, but Srujan, is there anything to add to that? Do you have an opinion on whether it should be one side or the other?
I think the ideal way to run this would be, have these teams more closer to the business, that decentralized approach that John's talking about, because you have that deep understanding of the domains, when you're that closely embedded on the business, closer to the business side. But I see a lot of organizations, they're going to go through some sort of a transitionary phase, I feel, where the initial phases of the data product rollout, you might be doing this from a CDO office as a centralized team. But as you start building out the skills, and I think organizations are also learning, just like when you started adopting agile, take some time for the organizations to understand this new way of working with data. And I see it as a step function where it might start off at a centralized level and start getting decentralized as these roles and processes mature over time.
Okay. So yeah, start in the sort of the data world, and then you're probably going to get shunted somewhere towards one of the commercial teams.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to talk a little bit about getting started, and I think one of the themes from both of you has been that data products really need to align with business strategy in order to work. So first of all, how do you begin by getting that alignment? Srujan, do you want to take this?
Yeah. So the first thing I'd say is, the ideal way to do this, and then I'll talk about, what's happening, and I'd say, do a thorough assessment of all of your source systems. Understand, where you have systems that generate similar types of data from multiple products that needs to be kind of standardized. So understanding and assessing your source systems to come up with what are the right source aligned data products that are going to create these sort of sources of truth. So if I have 10 order management systems, I would ideally like to have a source aligned data product that's going to standardize data coming out of those 10 systems. The second thing is understand your consumption archetypes. See, how different businesses are going to use the data. What sort of needs do they have? What sort of interfaces do they need on the data? Once you get that holistic understanding and start mapping some of the business domains into these consumer aligned data products, I feel, as you start creating, for example, a marketing 360, or a sales 360 or a commerce 360, where you're mapping your business domain into some of these data products, that now gives you a great foundation for any new business use case that's coming in to be able to quickly build on top of these foundational data products. That would be the ideal, way. But again, since this is such a new concept, that's, oftentimes what we do is pick a very specific business problem, get that deep understanding of what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and create a thin slice end to end. And we are incrementally building that value today. But as organizations start seeing value over the first 10 12 data products that you've created, then we are trying to encourage our customers to say, don't just constantly go find a business problem and try to build a data product. Take a more holistic approach, now that you get a better sense of how to build and run these.
That's interesting. So if I've understood the suggestion correctly, you start off with like, what is a really simple business problem that I can solve without having like vast amounts of data all over the place? Just do something simple, get that working. And then once you got like a dozen of these, you go, okay, well, I'm starting to see patterns here, and you can build these up into larger, like a small number of larger products rather than having lots of tiny individual data products. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, because this is a different way, right? You're thinking more outcome first. You're not thinking, where is my data? How do I ETL it into a centralized repository and then figure out what to do? This is a new approach. So it's going to take some time for, like a few use cases and a few successes early for the organization to start aligning around this.
Okay. All right. So in terms of like what makes a good first data product, so Srujan, you sort of said it's something simple, something like close to the sort of revenue or commercial side of the business. John, do you have any opinions on this? Like what can you give some examples of like what a good first data product might be?
Yeah, and those factors are important. There is really, when we talk about moving towards this way of operating, it is an organizational shift, and we say, you've got to start out by proving the value to the stakeholders. Somebody's going to have to sign a bigger check in a while, and so to get them to sign that bigger check, you're going to need to demonstrate why adopting this approach is better than anything we've done before. And so picking that use case that is meaningful to the business or to the stakeholders, the people who will be paying, and is demonstrating that a capability that they haven't been able to enable before. So with a life sciences company, one of the outputs from adopting a product-based approach was producing a trial diversity report. All of the information about the participants in trials are captured in clinical trial management systems, and large life sciences companies are often the result of many acquisitions. So you've got a whole bunch of different systems out there. And there wasn't the ability to look across the various trials and say, how well do the participants, I should say, in the trial align to the needs of that specific treatment? So something like sickle cell anemia predominantly affects the African American population. Let's make sure our trials reflect that. And so the ability to pull that information from across those trial management systems and present an accurate and up-to-date report was really critical to that business. And it was something they weren't able to do. And so picking that use case, demonstrating that value, and demonstrating, hey, using this approach, we can tackle problems that you struggled to tackle before, is valuable in opening up the organization to not just pay for the change, but to also drive the change that's required.
Okay, I like that here. So it's not just about we can do this thing more efficiently, it's we can solve a problem that we couldn't solve before. And that seems to be, I'm sure it's quite a powerful motivator there.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other point I wanted to make here, I would encourage, if you're building data products, start trying to measure the ROI. Start putting some measurement metrics, around your data products. That is going to really help you drive adoption. If you're able to clearly measure what are you spending on creating and managing a data product and capturing the ROI based on the use cases that you're powering, that I see actually, is very crucial in being able to do what John was saying in driving that adoption internally.
Okay, in that case, maybe let's skip to what constitutes the happy ending. What is a good return on investment? Like, what sort of metrics might you use? How do you measure this? Go on, Srujan, since you started on this subject, do you want to continue?
Yeah, so number one, what sort of compute resources are you spending to actually provision and keep a data product up and running? Is the number one thing that you would like to capture. You need to get, as you're building these data products, make sure that your platform has that kind of capability and that metadata from an operational perspective, so you can start capturing, this at that granular level. How many data products did I build from the marketing domain perspective? How much am I spending and constantly, managing these data products? And then, what sort of use cases am I driving? If I'm driving personalization, on the website, what was the lift that I got in my conversions, as an example, right? And those, again, are things that you capture in other tools at the edge, from your analytics tools, if you're trying to measure the conversion rates. But bringing that sort of information back from the usage side and having enough of the metadata from an operational perspective to understand, what are you spending on this? And this also becomes important because, if you don't do this, you'll end up with, a sprawl of data products that you're constantly managing, spending money on, and not retiring. And that, is something that won't be very efficient, especially from an OpEx perspective.
Okay, so this is definitely something I've experienced, from sort of creating software. It's like building new stuff, really fun. Maintaining stuff is less fun, and so you're probably going to want to retire stuff at some point.
Yeah.
So okay, so you need some measure of how much money is this actually bringing you, or how is it actually working towards your business goals?
Absolutely, yeah. I think like a typical product, right? If you have any software product, and let's say you have all your click analytics, from a mobile app or a website that you capture, you do constantly try to optimize, measure, and understand, how is this being used? Where is this being used? What are my journeys? What are my drop-off rates? Think about data products in a similar way. These are real products, so measure them and use the measurement to be able to manage them better.
Okay. John, do you want to expand on this? Have you seen any sort of specific examples of hey, this is a good metric for a particular product?
Yeah, I think what Srujan has talked about, the utilization, the cost per product, the usage of the individual products is really important to track, because one of the challenges we face is the "what have you done for me lately" challenge. So we talked about, I talked about that use case and say, all right, we invested some money to come up, and now we have this trial diversity report, and that's great. Or another client worked with in manufacturing, and we reduced the amount of time to produce their scrap report and how quickly they could turn around that information. Once you do it, then it's done. And from their mindset, it's like, okay, it's returned its value. And nobody remembers that it used to be 600 hours a quarter to put this together. And so you have to constantly reinforce the value, because once these systems are in place and once people are consuming them, they become utilities. They become perceived as, well, this is just cost of doing business. And I've worked with many clients who are saying, well, when does this cost in data drop down? When do I see those initial investments drop into just keeping the lights on? And our challenge is, well, there are always new questions you're asking. So it's not quite just keeping the lights on. So very important for you to constantly align the investments, understand the investments and how you're managing them. So to Srujan's point before, how am I retiring obsolescent or redundant data products? How am I keeping my data quality high, so it's having a right impact on my users? Having those metrics in place when you go in and start having discussions about, well, could we reduce this headcount? Can we pull back? Is really important to constantly reinforce the value that each piece of data is providing, but then tying it back to those use cases. So figuring out a way for you to represent residual value on if it's a case around the scrap report and what we're providing, or continuing to find new use cases and enable new research or new insights in your business. That's an important part to keep that business up and running.
Okay, so that's a really interesting idea that if you're doing it right, then people will sort of forget about how good this thing is. I suppose like when you turn on a tap in your house, it's like you get water, but you don't think about how much productivity you're saving over like having to go to the nearest well or something to get a bucket of water.
Right.
So keeping people excited, I'm sure that's going to be a challenge. All right, so I'd like to talk a little bit about the cultural aspects of creating data products. So what aspects of your corporate culture are going to make you successful at creating data products? Srujan, do you want to take this?
Culture, interesting. I think John would have, he has a much broader experience, but from my point of view, there are organizations that really treat data as an asset, and there are organizations that feel I just need data to do a few things within my business, right? So that mindset shift, when John started, this talk, and he said data product is an organizational asset. Are you treating it like that? Do you see these data itself as that central to your organization? I think it starts from the top, where do you see these as very critical organizational assets like your other tier one systems? If you don't start with that mindset, then then you won't see the kind of value. I think that is I'd say the most important thing, and where that needs to come top down, where you do see data as one of your most important assets in your organization. I mean, people talk about that a lot, that we invest in data, but that intent of how do I treat data? How am I funding this? Where does it sit? What is the importance of your data team in the decision-making process? That is really where it really shows, I feel. I don't know,
Okay.
John, what you...
Yeah, so leadership caring about data seems important. Go on. John, do you want to expand? And also, there was a bit of jargon you mentioned. So, Srujan, you were talking about tier one systems. So, I don't know, John, while you're talking, do you want to explain what those are?
Oh yeah, those critical business systems that run or that operate your business, whether it's your CRM solutions or ERP or MRP for manufacturing, that recognizing a head of sales, a VP of sales, recognizes how important that CRM solution is to tracking their funnel and ensuring that they're converting effectively. So recognizing that, but also recognizing the data that comes out of it. I completely agree with what Srujan said. In fact, it's one of the sort of heartbreaking experiences I've had over the past few years is there have been people who've reached out to us when we work with us, say, hey, we're very interested in data as a product and data mesh, and we want to partner with you. And we go in and we talk to the technology team, and they're very excited about this. So, okay, what about business sponsor? Well, we were thinking that if we build really great products and then go to the business, they'll finally get interested in it. And you're just like, oh, I'm sorry, I got some bad news for you. You're not going to get the investments you need. You're not going to if they're not, as Srujan said, if they're not pushing you for data, if they don't see how knowledge and insight can improve their business, they're going to look at this as a commodity, and they're not going to they're going to look to solve it in as cheap a fashion as possible. And I saw this contrast in talking to some folks in the oil and gas industry and the upstream parts of the business and discovery versus talking to folks in life sciences. I gave a talk on that actually last year in Norway, and the challenges in the drug business. It takes $1 billion in 10 years to take a drug to market, and only like 16% of them at most make it through. So there's a very clear opportunity to drive innovation through finding out what drugs are going to fail as quickly as possible, accelerating that discovery process. People see millions and billions of dollars associated with that. Other industries don't have that driver. And so, yeah, I need to have reports so the regulators don't put me in handcuffs. But that's as much as I'm going to invest. That's as much as I'm going to do. I'm not going to drive a transformation in the business. So again, just agreeing very much with Srujan.
Yeah. And just one more point I'll add here, Richie, is, one of the places where data products are going to help, when organizations, especially leadership, looks at data today, it's like that technical thing, where I need all of this, investments in platforms, data engineers, analysts, and I really don't understand, how it looks very complex. Data products, the whole approach, why I was so excited about, starting this company is you can finally make data look simple, make data look like a product. And I think that also I'm hoping will help make that shift happen from a leadership perspective, that this is more tangible. It is a product. It is easy to use, approachable, versus looking at it as a very complex technical ecosystem.
Okay. So in general, like, it seems culturally before you get started, you're going to have to get that leadership buy-in. From the technical side of things, what do you need before you can create data products? Like, what state does your data need to be in before you can just hit go? And who wants to answer this?
John, do you want to go first, and I'll add in?
Sure.
Okay.
So the good news is I would say you can start building your data products from day one. You don't have to wait until you clean up your data to do that. That being said, you've got to be very careful with how you present those products if you haven't cleaned up that data yet. The idea of presenting low quality data to a consumer is an extremely risky and often method of failing, right? Is a failure mode, because once the users look at the data and they don't trust it, then you've lost them. So it is important that you do instill that quality, but by building the product, you will often understand the challenges that are associated with bad data quality. Most of the time, or a significant portion of the time, data quality is about understanding what the data actually means. So somebody might ask a question, and the simple example I give is with a manufacturer saying, hey, how much does it cost to build an excavator? Like, well, wait a minute. How much did it cost in 1979 when that was first built? How much it would cost if we tried to build that today? Did you plan for that? Or are you buying steel from the spot market? Tell me what you mean. And it's those meanings, that nuance, that people don't understand. So when they look at numbers, like, these numbers are wrong. Well, they're wrong with your filter. And so getting everybody a common understanding what the truth is, understanding those data quality problems, building those products and trying to solve those problems accelerates that process, accelerates learning. And so going out and building these data products and figuring out where the problems are, and then driving that back into your policies about governance, around data quality, helps create that virtuous cycle.
Oh, okay. I like that you can get started with day one, but you're probably going to learn a lot, and that's going to sort of have that feedback loop and then improve your data quality. Srujan, you wanted to add something there?
Yeah. So that what John said about the data quality, I think it's absolutely essential, right? But as you think about organizations, when your operational systems are generating this raw data, there are going to be quality gaps. There are going to be issues that you have to address. That requires a flexibility in your platform, in the underlying platform that you build, that will allow your engineers to be able to understand the data to the extent that John said, or be able to convert that data, transform it easily into the kind of data products you need. Requires the flexibility in your data infrastructure. One of the things that we've been talking a lot about under CDO, written many blogs around this, is start looking at data as software. Bring those software engineering best practices into data, and like how you have these internal developer platforms that make it very easy and very declarative for developers to start working on building value. I think that is where the platforms need to go, is abstract the complexity, make it very declarative, make the developers focus on the value rather than the process, which is where I feel they spend most of the time today. And having that kind of an underlying infrastructure is going to be essential if you want to be able to really roll out data products at scale.
Okay, so I like this idea of like declarative product creation. So the idea is you say, hey, this is the business problem I'm trying to solve, and the sort of the how you do it is sort of automatically handled. So I guess this is like the promise of like fancier developer tools and AI, generative AI, and all this kind of stuff is like you just worry about like what are you trying to solve, not how you do it.
Exactly.
Okay, so since data quality has come up a few times in the last few minutes, can you just talk me through what are the most common data quality issues that you're going to deal with when you're creating these data products? John, do you want to go?
Yeah, gosh, it is all over the boards. It really is dependent on the source systems. As Srujan was saying before, you have your six. Well, first off, you have your 6 dimensions of data quality, and so you're looking at things like completeness or timeliness or accuracy, and all of those factors come into play. It can be that you're getting data from systems that are, we're looking to do a form of analytics on our sales funnel, but we haven't broken down our processes sufficiently to track, we moved into solution development at this point. You're not capturing the data. So the completeness, the accuracy, when you think about things like emails and addresses and all of that, and fat fingering content, these are all issues too. The hidden one I think is interesting is timeliness. Do people know exactly when the data that they're looking at? Right now, I'm trying to track a package that's coming from across the country, and I know that it's in transit, but the United Postal Service doesn't actually update their systems frequently enough to let me know that. So timeliness is a huge factor. So all of these things come into play. We found with an organization, a company we worked with, and pulling together a lot of acquisitions and trying to get down to a consolidated representation of their P&L was such an endeavor because the systems all capture data a little bit differently. And so it's that reconciliation process. So it's all over the board in my experience.
I guess there are a lot of different ways data quality can go wrong, and that package example is very relatable. Certainly, I've used a package tracker before, and it's like, 3 days ago your package was in Kansas. I'm like, is that good? I don't know. Is it coming my way? Nice. All right. So I don't know, Srujan, have you seen any patterns in this? Like, are there any particular common data quality issues that you've seen?
I think, pretty much what John's did, they're really, a wide spectrum. The rate at which, if I have streaming endpoints where I'm pulling data in, the rate at which the events come in, sometimes you just see the drop in, how fast the events are coming in. That might, indicate a problem in your source system. If you have email fields, do you have the completeness? Do you have, all the fields, represented properly? Sometimes organizations think I have 100 million customers in my customer database, and when you really profile the data, you see there's only 30% completeness in the email field, and that is really the reach of what you can get, not really the 100 million, right? So these are the things that you often see.
Okay.
In the data.
All right. So for everyone in the audience, I've got a few more questions, but we've got time for our guests to answer your questions. So please do write in the chat any questions you've got for Srujan and John. All right. So next question is, what can go wrong? So are there any common mistakes that organizations make when they start trying to build data products? Go on, John. Do you want to go for this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Before Srujan said, "Hey, in a perfect world, we would have the opportunity to build out the data and present it, and then and work on it from an approach of laying a foundation and building up." What we've seen is that, and the reason he said that doesn't work is the reason we've seen is the old adage, "Build it and they will come," is not accurate. And so one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen consistently over almost 30 years in this is organizations going out and trying to build out a solution and then, some sort of big ta-da moment to the business. And the problems are that the delay, everything gets bigger and messier and uglier than you expected, and the projects get delayed. Because of that delay, that question that a few people asked 2 years ago, and you weren't able to answer, and you've gone off in the corner and you built this data warehouse or data lake or data products, when you come back, well, they figured out how to answer that question. They figured out how to live without that answer if they can't get it. So they're asking different questions now. And so what you've built may not be relevant. And it was interesting, in the Data Mesh Radio podcast, a person from Abbott was talking about their experience of trying to anticipate their consumers and try and build ahead of the use cases. They found they missed the mark so many times. So I think the biggest failure mode that we've seen in the industry is trying to jump ahead, too far ahead of your consumers and trying to anticipate their needs rather than building on specifically what they're asking for. I think Srujan brought up a great point before too, is as a great data product owner, you gotta have a little bit of foresight about, okay, I know what you're asking for now, what might you be asking for next, or what are the next set of use cases we're going to tackle, and think about your product strategy, but you shouldn't get too far ahead.
Okay, so yeah, scope creep is a definite problem in a lot of software development as well. So I can certainly say it would be a problem with data products. Srujan, have you seen examples of mistakes that organizations make?
Yeah, so I think you need the mindset shift, right? When you think about data products, this is not your left to right traditional way of thinking about data. So don't take the same old way of trying to do things and just map it. It's not like I'm just converting every view into a data product, but I'm really thinking differently about understanding the business need and creating the right data product that might serve multiple needs. Versus just I have all these views and golden data sets that are powering all my use cases. Just let me just go replicate. That's like buying the most modern lake house and dumping your third normal form tables into that and saying I just have a modern system. I think that mindset shift needs to happen. I think people need to really embrace organizations that this is a much better way to deal with data, but it requires a mindset shift in the organization.
Okay, yeah, so you can't just buy tools and be done. You've got to think about like all your processes and the people who are involved and getting that sort of buy-in and how the teams communicate with each other. All right, we've got a few moments left. So tell me, what are you most excited about in the world of data products? Srujan, do you want to go?
I feel like data. What I am excited, and I kind of mentioned that a little earlier, is I think data is finally going to be a lot more approachable. It doesn't look like it's such a technical thing. I need all of these deep technical skills just to use data to drive my business decisions. And that's always been, my passion is how do I think about abstracting out all of the complexity and how do I make something like data be more approachable and more simple. That's what I'm excited about, where you see this as any other product that you're using, in your house, right? And I think that is when you really start seeing the democratization that we talk about, embedding data in all of your business decisions and making it a critical part of your business.
Okay, yeah, bringing data to the masses, that's brilliant. Very much aligns with what we believe in here at DataCamp. John, what are you most excited about?
On that and building on that, bring it to the masses. I think one of the things that can be very gratifying if you've been an analyst or data engineer is actually delivering something that delights your clients, that delights the consumers. And so the ability to enable those product teams to answer questions faster, to turn it into a conversation rather than your business asks you for a question and you come back 3 to 6 months later, that sort of pace. We're turning things around quickly. We're becoming a vital solution, a vital asset to the organization. And the company, the enterprise you're in is feeling that way. That to me is the most exciting thing about the product approach, is enabling that ability to delight your consumers and respond rapidly to their requests.
Delighting consumers. That's a very cool thing. I'm sure everyone wants that. All right. Do you have any final advice for any organizations wanting to get started with data products? Go on, John, do you want to go first this time?
Sure. Thank you. I do think the concepts that we talked about before, starting small, identifying opportunities to deliver value, and building up the gravity, the support to do more. So that incremental, hey, we're going to solve a problem and then we're going to expand. And so constantly thinking about how you're going to, in each step, build forward and move faster. That over, well, we're going to go off in the corner and build a whole lot of something is always going to be the best way for you to be successful.
Okay. I mean, I can say it could sometimes be appealing that I'm just going to go and build stuff, not talk to anyone. But right. I suspect that's not going to be very successful. Srujan, do you have any final advice?
Yeah, I'd say, I think this is going to be the future. If you see any other field, the moment you start simplifying the complexity, abstracting it out, is where the adoption kind of skyrockets, right? I feel we are getting to that place where data truly becomes embedded into the business decisioning process. So don't be afraid of this kind of a change. It's not like we've all embraced agile and see what that has done for our productivity. I think this is going to do the same thing. So be very iterative, quick. Don't try to solve the whole problems in one go. Start small, keep iterating on it, and I think you will get there. I think this is the right approach, I feel, for the future of data.
Wonderful. And I like the idea that it's like no fear, because that's often the thing. It's like, new things, very terrifying. But I'm sure this is going to help. All right, we got one question from the audience. So this comes from, excuse me. This comes from Ravinder. So we've gone through some examples of the successful data products, but I don't know whether you want to come with some new examples. So Ravinder's just asking for more examples of what are some cool data products that work.
Like I started off my chat with Richie, a customer 360 as one of the foundational data products. There are so many different use cases, that it delivers for you, from a marketing perspective, from understanding the customers to be able to better target them, from the customer care perspective, being able to better serve your customers. So there's a lot of, use cases. And what we have seen where we have driven a lot of value initially with our customer engagements is on the sales and marketing side, where we are able to really, transform the sales and marketing teams to be very data driven in their approach, in really understanding. And the fact that these data products give you real time analysis of what has happened and how your business metrics are changing, and being able to react to it, especially in a marketing context, becomes very, very useful. And that's something I've seen our customers leverage quite a bit.
Okay, so we've talked about sort of sales and marketing quite a lot. How about some other teams in the business? Like, what might the use cases be for like a finance team, or if you're involved in supply chain or logistics?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to say.
Talking about move over, say, manufacturing. So one manufacturer that we've been working with, one of the products that they have is called shop visit hours. So what they're looking to do is understand the item that they're billed. How long does it sit in the shop? Why is it sitting in the shop? What are the things that are causing it to sit longer in the shop? And so the analysis of this device came in, it sat in the facility for 7 days, and the primary reasons, and the breakdown of that were shipping of the part to the right location, finding out there was the right location in the wrong part, shipping the part again, that sort of thing. So giving people an understanding of, when you look at something and just say, hey, listen, you know what? These devices sitting idle 7% of the time is costing our company $10 million or a month or something. And saying, well, okay, let's take a step back and say why and what are the real factors. So being able to pull that apart, it was more about process and pulling different systems together than it was about any really technically difficult process.
Okay, that seems very cool. It's like, oh yeah, the part's stuck in Kansas somewhere, maybe. But yeah, I like the idea that that's a case where it's going to just make things run a little bit more efficiently. All right, so with that, we are coming up to time. So for all of you who are interested, we have some more webinars coming up. So let me see, the next one is on the 1st of May. So that's a session on Alteryx Cloud. We've got a session on there 2nd of May on how to do data storytelling better. Lots more webinars coming up. Hopefully we can have a QR code on the QR code on the top left. Click on that, you'll be able to sign up for future events. So with that, thank you, Srujan. Thank you, John. Like really informative stuff. I very much enjoyed this discussion. I felt like I learned a lot. Thank you to so thank you both. Thank you to Reese for moderating. Thank you to everyone who asked a question. Thank you to everyone who showed up today. I hope to see you all again in future.